Stop trying to see what everyone else sees. The moment you realize that most people are looking in the completely wrong direction is the moment your entire life changes. And what I'm about to share with you isn't some feel-good theory, it's the uncomfortable truth about perception that nobody wants to talk about. Look around you right now. Everyone's staring at their screens, chasing the same goals, following the same paths, convinced they're seeing reality clearly. But here's the thing, they're not seeing reality at all. They're seeing a collective hallucination that we've all agreed to call normal. And the people who actually understand how life works, they're not looking where everyone else is looking. They've discovered something that changes everything. And today, you're going to understand exactly what that is. Here's what's actually happening in your life right now, even if you don't realize it yet. You've been trained since birth to see the world in a very specific way. Your parents taught you what to value. Your teachers told you what success looks like. Society handed you a script and said, "Here, follow this, and you'll be happy. Get good grades, get a good job, buy a house, retire, die." That's the program. That's what everyone's running on autopilot. But there's a massive problem with this program. It doesn't work. Look at the people around you who followed it perfectly. Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Or are they quietly desperate, wondering why the promised reward never showed up? They did everything right according to the map they were given, but somehow they ended up in the wrong place. The real issue isn't that you're not working hard enough, or that you haven't found the right strategy. The real issue is that you're trying to solve the wrong problem. You're looking for answers in the same place everyone else is looking, and that place is completely empty. It's like trying to find water by digging where everyone else already dug and found nothing. You're just making the same hole deeper. Think about this for a second. When you have a problem, what do? You look for solutions, right? You search online, you ask friends, you read books, you watch videos just like this one. But all of those sources are pointing you in the same direction. They're all based on the same assumptions about what life is and what you should be doing with it. And those assumptions, they're wrong. Not slightly wrong, fundamentally wrong. The paradox is this. The more you try to see things clearly by looking where everyone else looks, the blinder you become. Because clarity doesn't come from adding more information. It comes from removing the filters that are distorting what you're already seeing. And those filters, they were installed in your mind before you could even talk. You didn't choose them, you inherited them. And now they're running your entire life without you even knowing it. This is why smart people often struggle the most. They've learned how to think really well inside the box they were given. They can solve complex problems, analyze situations, make logical decisions. But they never question the box itself. They never ask if the game they're playing so well is actually worth playing. And that's the trap. Intelligence without awareness just makes you a more sophisticated prisoner. Right now, as you're listening to this, you're probably experiencing one of two reactions. Either you're nodding along thinking, yes, I've felt this, or you're resisting, thinking this doesn't apply to me. Both reactions are interesting because they're both coming from the same place. They're coming from the part of you that's been conditioned to either accept or reject ideas based on how they fit with your existing worldview. But what if your entire worldview is the problem? The illusion of the separate self. Let's start with the biggest blind spot that almost everyone has. You think you're a separate individual living inside your head, looking out at a world that's separate from you. There's you in here, and there's the world out there. This seems so obvious that questioning it feels ridiculous. But stay with me because this is where everything starts to shift. This feeling of being a separate self isn't actually reality. It's a story. It's a very convincing story that your brain tells you every single day. But it's still just a story. Think about it. Where does you actually begin and the world end? Is it at your skin? but your skin is constantly exchanging atoms with the air around you. You're breathing in the world and breathing out yourself. You're eating the world and turning it into your body. The bacteria in your gut that you need to survive aren't even technically you, but without them you'd die. The boundaries you think are solid are actually fluid and arbitrary, but we don't see this. We can't see this because we've been taught to identify with one tiny part of the whole process and call that part me. It's like a wave in the ocean. Thinking it's separate from the ocean, the wave has a shape, a beginning, an end. It rises and falls. It seems like an individual thing, but it's not separate from the ocean at all. It's something the ocean is doing. You are something the entire universe is doing. Right here, right now. But you've been taught to experience yourself as separate, isolated, and fundamentally alone. And from that false starting point, everything else gets distorted. Because if you're separate, then you need to defend yourself. You need to acquire things. You need to prove your worth. You need to win. You need to survive in a hostile world that's out to get you. But what if none of that is true? What if the feeling of separation is the source of almost all human suffering? Think about your worst moments. Loneliness, anxiety, fear, jealousy, anger. What do they all have in common? They all come from this sense of being a separate self that's vulnerable and under threat. When you're depressed, you feel isolated and cut off. When you're anxious, you're worried about what will happen to this separate you. When you're jealous, you're afraid someone else is getting something that you're not. All of these painful states emerge from the same root misunderstanding. The misunderstanding that you are this isolated fragment of consciousness, trapped inside a body, trying to make it through a meaningless universe before you blink out of existence forever. No wonder people are miserable. That's a horrible way to experience life. And it's completely unnecessary because it's based on a misperception. Now here's where it gets interesting. You can't think your way out of this. You can't understand it intellectually and suddenly be free. Because the thing that's trying to understand is the illusion itself. It's like a character in a dream trying to figure out its dreaming. The character is made of dream. Everything it touches is dream. Every conclusion it reaches is still happening inside the dream. The only way to wake up is to actually wake up, not to think about waking up. This is what most people miss completely. They read about these ideas and think, oh, that's interesting, and then go back to living as a separate self. The idea becomes one more piece of information in their mental filing cabinet. But that's not transformation. That's just redecoration. You've added some spiritual furniture to the same old room. The room itself hasn't changed. The tyranny of constant becoming. Here's the second major thing that people don't see. You're always trying to become something other than what you are right now. Always, in every moment, there's this subtle or not so subtle voice saying, this isn't it yet, but it will be better when you get that job, when you find that relationship, when you lose that weight, when you make that money, when you reach that goal. The present moment is always inadequate, and the future is always where the good stuff is waiting. This is exhausting. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time you speed up. You never actually arrive anywhere because arrival isn't the point. The point is to keep you running, to keep you consuming, to keep you striving and struggling and feeling like you're not enough yet. Because a person who feels complete doesn't buy much. A person who feels whole doesn't need constant distraction. A person who's content with what is doesn't make a good consumer. So society has a vested interest in keeping you stuck in this state of perpetual becoming. The advertising you see every day isn't just selling products. It's selling the idea that you're incomplete and that their product will complete you. The self-help industry isn't trying to help you become whole. It's trying to convince you that you're broken so you'll keep buying solutions. Even spirituality gets packaged and sold as a destination you need to reach through years of practice and payment. But here's what they don't want you to realize. You're not trying to become something you're not. You're trying to recognize what you already are. There's nowhere to get to because you're already here. There's nothing to achieve because you already have everything you need in this moment. Not in some abstract spiritual sense, but actually, right now as you are complete. The only thing missing is the recognition of that completeness. Think about the best moments of your life. The moments when you felt truly alive and present. What were you doing? Chances are, you weren't thinking about becoming something else. You weren't worried about the future or regretting the past. You were just completely absorbed in what was happening right now. Playing music, making love, watching a sunset, laughing with friends. In those moments, the treadmill stopped. The voice went quiet, and you got a glimpse of what it's like to simply be rather than constantly become. But then the mind kicks back in and says, that was great. How do I get more of that? And immediately you're back on the treadmill, trying to become the kind of person who has more peak experiences. You've turned being into another form of becoming. You've made presence into a goal, and goals are always in the future, which means you've missed the present moment again. This is the trap. Every time you try to capture the present, it slips away because trying is future-oriented. Trying happens in time, but presence is timeless. You can't try to be present any more than you can try to be yourself. You already are yourself. You already are present. The problem is that you're too busy trying to be present to notice that you already are. The game you can't win. Let's talk about success for a minute. What is success? Think about your own definition before you keep listening. Really think about it. What would success look like for you? Got it? Good. Now here's the question. Where did that definition come from? Did you consciously choose it based on your deepest values and authentic desires? Or did you absorb it from the culture around you without really examining it? For most people, success means having more money, more status, more achievements, more followers, more stuff. The specific details vary, but the structure is the same. Success is always somewhere ahead of you, requiring you to have or do something you don't currently have or do. This creates a permanent state of lack. No matter what you achieve, there's always another level, another goal, another thing to want. This is by design. The game is set up so you can't win. Because if you won, you'd stop playing, and the economy needs you to keep playing. Your discontent is profitable. Your ambition is useful. Your fear of being left behind keeps you running faster on the wheel. But here's the secret that successful people eventually discover. The game itself is optional. You don't have to play. You were never forced to accept the goals that society handed you. You can define success in completely different terms, or you can stop defining it at all. You can just live, not trying to get anywhere or prove anything or accumulate anything. Just being alive and seeing what happens. This sounds irresponsible or lazy to people who are still in the game, but to people who've stepped out of it, it's the only sane way to live. Think about the richest, most successful people in the world. Are they happy? Some are, some aren't. Success didn't determine their happiness. So what's the point of sacrificing your present moment, your health, your relationships, your peace of mind, to chase something that doesn't even guarantee the thing you actually want? You're not really chasing success. You're chasing the feeling you think success will give you. And that feeling is available right now, without any of the stuff you think you need. But we don't see this. We keep playing the game, even though we know the rules are rigged. Why? Because everyone else is playing. Because we're afraid of what it means to stop. Because we don't know who we are without our goals and ambitions and struggles. Our identity is wrapped up in the game. If we stop playing, who are we? That question terrifies people. So they stay in the game even when it's making them miserable. They work jobs they hate, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't like. They sacrifice their present for a future that never quite arrives. They postponed actually living until they've checked off enough boxes. and then they die having spent their entire lives preparing to live. The liberation in insecurity. Now we're getting to something really uncomfortable. Security is a myth. Complete security is impossible, yet most of your decisions are based on trying to achieve it. You want a secure job, a secure relationship, a secure future. You want guarantees that everything will work out. You want to know that you'll be okay, and this desire for security is making you miss the entire point of being alive. Life is insecure. Reality is uncertain. Everything changes. Everyone dies. Nothing lasts. These aren't pessimistic statements. They're just observations. But we spend enormous amounts of energy trying to pretend they're not true. We build elaborate structures of insurance and plans and savings and relationships, all designed to create the feeling of security. And then we're surprised when those structures fail to deliver what they promised. The truth is, you're never going to feel completely secure, never. Even if you have millions of dollars in the bank, perfect health, a loving family, and a great career, there will still be uncertainty, because security isn't something you can achieve through external arrangements. It's not out there in the world. The world is fundamentally insecure. Everything you can see and touch and measure will eventually fall apart. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with a choice. You can spend your whole life running from insecurity, trying to build walls against the chaos, controlling and planning and worrying, or you can accept insecurity as the basic condition of existence and learn to dance with it instead of fighting it. One path leads to constant anxiety, the other leads to freedom. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop demanding security, you feel more secure. Not because anything changed in the external world, but because you're no longer at war with reality. You're no longer betting your peace of mind on things you can't control. You've stopped making your happiness conditional on a future that may never come. And in that stopping, something opens up. A space, a lightness, a sense that maybe, just maybe, it's okay to not know what's going to happen. People who've touched this space often describe it as feeling more alive than they've ever felt. Because when you're not clinging to security, you're available to the actual experience of being here. You're not filtering everything through the lens of is this safe? You're just experiencing what is. And what is, when you actually pay attention to it without judgment, is absolutely extraordinary. But we miss it. We're too busy trying to make life safe to actually live it. We're so focused on avoiding pain that we also avoid joy. We're so committed to our plans that we miss the opportunities that don't fit the plan. We're so invested in our stories about how things should be that we can't see how things actually are. Think about how much time you spend each day worrying about the future, planning for worst-case scenarios, trying to control outcomes, building safety nets under your safety nets. All of this takes energy, massive amounts of energy. And what does it get you? A little temporary relief that never lasts, because there's always another threat on the horizon, another thing that could go wrong, another risk to manage. This is exhausting, and the cruel joke is that all this effort doesn't actually make you safer. It just makes you more anxious. Because the more you try to control, the more aware you become of everything that's outside your control. The more you plan, the more you realize how many things could derail your plans. The more you worry, the more things you find to worry about. The alternative isn't recklessness. It's not about being careless or irresponsible. It's about recognizing that real security doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from your relationship with uncertainty itself. When you stop fighting the fact that life is unpredictable, when you stop demanding guarantees that don't exist, something shifts. You become flexible instead of rigid, resilient instead of fragile, open instead of defending. And here's what nobody tells you. This openness, this acceptance of insecurity, actually makes you better at dealing with life, because you're not wasting energy on impossible battles. You're not paralyzed by fear of the unknown. You're not so attached to specific outcomes that you fall apart when things don't go according to plan. You become like water flowing around obstacles instead of crashing into them. The liberation in insecurity is this. When you stop trying to make life safe, you start actually living. When you accept that nothing lasts, you appreciate what's here right now. When you embrace uncertainty, you become available to possibilities you never would have seen while you were busy protecting yourself. The very thing you've been running from your entire life turns out to be the doorway to freedom. The power of not knowing. This brings us to the final and perhaps most important point. You don't know, and that's not a problem to be solved. That's the answer. The mind hates this. The mind wants to know. It wants to understand. It wants to figure things out and file them away in neat categories. The mind is a meaning-making machine, and it never stops running. Even now, as you're listening to this, your mind is trying to integrate these ideas into your existing framework, trying to know. But the deepest truths can't be known in that way. They can only be experienced. You can't think your way into understanding what you really are any more than an eye can see itself directly. The instrument you're using to look is the thing you're trying to look at. So all you get is confusion and concepts and theories. Meanwhile, the direct experience of what you are is happening right now, but you're too busy thinking about it to notice it. Not knowing doesn't mean being ignorant or stupid. It means being open. It means holding your beliefs lightly. It means being willing to be wrong. It means staying curious instead of becoming certain. Certainty closes doors, not knowing opens them. When you're certain, you stop looking. When you don't know, you keep exploring. The people who see what others don't aren't smarter or more educated or more spiritual. They're just less certain. They've realized that their map of reality isn't reality itself. They've discovered that the story they tell themselves about life isn't life itself. And in that discovery, they've become available to seeing what's actually here rather than what they think should be here. This is what shifts everything, not accumulating more knowledge, but recognizing the limits of knowledge. Not becoming more certain, but becoming comfortable with uncertainty. Not figuring it all out, but realizing that there's nothing to figure out. Life isn't a problem to be solved. It's a reality to be experienced. When you stop trying to know and start simply paying attention, something remarkable happens. You begin to see patterns that were always there but invisible to you. You start to notice connections you couldn't see before. You become sensitive to the subtle currents of reality that most people miss entirely. Not because you've gained some special power, but because you've removed the obstacles that were blocking your natural perception. So here's the moment where it all comes together. Everything I've been pointing to leads to this. You are not separate. You are not incomplete. You are not trying to get somewhere. You are not your thoughts or your story or your identity. You are the awareness in which all of that appears. You are the space in which experience happens. You are what remains when you stop trying to be anything at all. This isn't a belief system. This isn't something to adopt or practice or work toward. This is what's actually true right now. The only reason you don't see it is because you're looking past it, looking for something more complicated, more distant, more achievable. You're looking where everyone else is looking, and everyone else is looking in the wrong direction. The paradox of seeing what others don't is that there's nothing special to see. There's no hidden truth that only the enlightened can access. There's no secret teaching that will finally make sense of everything. There's just this moment, this breath, this awareness, this aliveness. It's so simple and obvious that we miss it completely. We're standing in the middle of it, looking for it somewhere else. And the moment you get this, not intellectually but actually get it in your bones, everything changes without anything changing. The world looks the same, but your relationship to it is completely different. Problems don't disappear, but they stop defining you. Pain still happens, but it doesn't turn into suffering. Joy becomes deeper because you're not clutching at it. Peace becomes natural because you're not fighting reality anymore. This is what it means to see what others don't. It's not about being special or superior or more evolved. It's about recognizing what's always been here, hiding in plain sight. It's about waking up from the collective dream and seeing that you were never really asleep. It's about stopping the search and discovering that what you were searching for is what's doing the searching. Look, I get it. Everything I just shared probably sounds either too simple to be true or too strange to be useful. Your mind is probably trying to either dismiss this or turn it into another thing to achieve. That's fine, that's what minds do. But underneath all that mental activity, there's a knowing, a recognition, a sense that something here is pointing at something real, even if you can't quite grasp it with your thoughts. You don't have to grasp it, you don't have to understand it, you don't have to do anything with this information. Just let it sit there, let it percolate, and pay attention to your actual experience instead of your thoughts about your experience. Notice the difference between the story you tell yourself about your life and the direct sensation of being alive. The paradox of seeing what others don't isn't about gaining some special vision. It's about removing the filters that distort your natural way of seeing. It's about questioning the assumptions you've never questioned. It's about recognizing that the problems you're trying to solve might be based on misunderstandings about what you are and what life is. You are not who you think you are. Your life is not what you think it is. And that's the best news you could possibly hear, because what you actually are is so much more than the limited, anxious, separate self you've been pretending to be. And what life actually is so much richer and stranger and more interesting than the story you've been told about it. The people who see clearly aren't looking at different things. They're looking at the same things everyone else sees, but without the layer of interpretation and judgment and fear that most people bring to every moment. They're trying to see anything, they're just seeing, and in that simple, direct seeing, everything reveals itself. If this shifted something in you, watch the next video where we go even deeper.